Hey, everybody, this is Roy Carter from Rectitude Media, and let's get down to the brass tacks. Woke up this morning, saw some interesting news on CNN about, I guess, Mitt Romney, who, nobody really cares what Mitt Romney is doing right now, because he's not in the picture for one, and, it's definitely just an attack, because there's no grounds of anything. He's saying that there's a bombshell in his tax forms or something like that, or his tax returns, which is kind of interesting considering Trump's been audited like every single year for quite some time now, and he goes through a very strenuous financial investigation each year to get his license, I think, with the New Jersey state for his casinos and stuff. So, if they would have found anything, they would have used it against him by now, I can tell you that. There's also ABC's putting a hit piece against him, too. And, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of interesting that Jeb Bush dropped out of the race because, of course they would go after, they go after Trump, but they wouldn't mention anything about the Bin Laden affiliations and the Halliburton contracts and stuff with the Bush family. So, and just how much of a conflict of interest that stuff was. Or, here they are going after Trump for his taxes and stuff like that, or his finances. And, Hillary Clinton's running on a pro-woman, women's rights platform when, she's getting a huge amount of funding from Saudi Arabia, which is just completely, stoning women for trying to drive without a male escort, or, going out in public without a male escort, or, going out in public while not covered in some sort of crazy hijab. It's, oh my God, it's getting to the point where it's just like, really, mainstream media? Are you that desperate? Is it at that point where you just can't think of anything else? And, Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire lost by 20 points and still pulled in her superdelegates. And, I feel bad for Americans, especially Democrats, because, for the younger Democrats, they're more like Bernie Sanders. And, whether or not you believe in the whole socialism thing, or if you think it's effective, that's another video. I live in a social democratic, country. And we used to have a really good standard of living here in Canada. But that was also before we started going towards the globalist aspect of things. You see, people don't realize just how devastating NAFTA was, and how devastating the TPP is going to be. And even though we said here in Canada that we're not going to ratify it, it's still very destructive, because it's a living document. They could easily, because what the TPP really does, in essence, the 6,000 pages is, make a group of pretty much just like a council that's international. They're not elected. They don't have any ties to like an actual country. They're pretty much, they don't have our best interests in hand whatsoever. And they make the decisions, and they can easily scrap the entire TPP. They can scrap the entire transatlantic partnership, and completely make a new set of Orwellian rules if they wanted to, and there's nothing that can stop them from doing it. And most people aren't even aware of that fact. And I'm actually, when it comes down to what's going on in the States, and the reason why I'm kind of focusing more on what's going on in the States is just right now it's more sexy in the news. I like what's going on with the Republican and the Democratic election. What's going on there, trying to find their nominations. Here in Canada right now, what we have is the Rachel Notley and the whole NDP experiment there in Alberta, and their censorship of journalists. They ended up going back on it, but still, it just goes to show you how Orwellian things are in Canada. We have people here in Canada that are actually being arrested for speaking out against the migrant population that's coming in, and also the from Syria or Libya. Even though they keep saying it's Syrian refugees, and a lot of them aren't even Syrian, and they seem to forget that a good portion of those refugees are also coming from Libya. The UK doesn't mind reporting on it, because they're the ones that are having, Spain, Greece, they're the ones that are having these migrants wash up on their doorstep. So, and then you have the Operation Sophia thing that just got leaked. That's kind of interesting to see what's going on with the government and how they're taking this whole migrant crisis. Looks like in Germany right now, there was one case where I guess they ended up burning down a building that was housing the the refugees or whatnot, and so-called refugees, and the people were actually kind of cheering, and it's just a backlash in Germany. Well, and that's what happens. I mean, like, I'm not saying that I condone the public for doing that, but when you infuse a huge population into small areas that have had a predominantly like German or have had like a population there for quite some time, and have like their own culture, then there's going to be that clash. If you don't introduce, like, I don't mind immigration if it's introducing small segments of people from different parts of around the world, so that people in that area have a chance to adapt and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, that's cool that you're from this different part of the world, and oh, wow, you may have had this in your past and stuff, and then like they integrate into society, as opposed to this whole you bring a whole, like, there's, I think in Germany they had one village that was like 2,000 people, and they brought in like 3,000 migrants, and there's no sense of community. They're not working together. No, it's Muslims that are keeping their own thing and saying, okay, well, now you have to adhere to our rules. And it's gotten to the point where they're telling women that it's their fault if they get raped. They also had this like stupid commercial about like some woman who's like using like these weird hand signals and stuff, and they even censored, I guess there was a protest where they made like these little foam bumper thing circles around women to see like no, like don't touch kind of thing, and the mainstream media completely censored that because they didn't want, they didn't like the way that it portrayed it, because it's so stupid that they're like, especially since the left completely embraces this whole Sharia law, and it's like weird. It's like you have the left on one side saying that they completely support women's rights and all this stuff, and yet they're supporting people that are proponents of Sharia law, which is completely contrary to if anything, it's the women's aren't exactly high on the totem pole to say the least, and it's just shows you the mental illness of it all, really. And I don't consider myself conservative. I don't consider myself anything like that. I'm just more in like the middle of everything. There's certain things that, I mean, I see the insanity of the left, and I also see the insanity of the right, and I call out all parties for their bull crap, and that's just the way I am. I mean, if it gets to the point where if we're taking one group of people over another and not actually kind of making it so that it's an equal playing field for all, then I'm going to be against it. And that's just how I am. So, I mean, I have some views that could be seen as conservative. I also have some very liberal viewpoints. In fact, I don't care about gay marriage. I think people should be allowed to do whatever they want between two consenting adults, as long as they're adults and they're consenting. As when you start getting into this whole people that like salon like media outlets and stuff like that are defending like pedophiles and defending incest and stuff like that, or like interspecies love and stuff like that, that's where I draw the line, because it's just kind of gross. And obviously, like, incest is completely damaging to your own genetic makeup, for example, and I mean, the Egyptians and the Romanovs were pretty good examples of that, of what happens when you inbreed. I have pure blood! Like, dying of fucking all kinds of shit. Anyways, but you know how it is. It's gotten to that point where, if you look at the mainstream media now, they're doing everything they can, and I don't agree with Trump on some things. I mean, I don't think that putting up a border wall is really going to do anything. Yeah, I mean, it'll keep maybe like the average Mexican person that's coming over, possibly, from going across the border, or might stop the maybe like handful of smugglers that come in through Canada. Actually, there was when I was in Nelson, there was some old hippies there that were telling me about the smuggling routes and the best times to go across the border, because you see, that was actually at the point they said that it's almost not worth it to do it now because of the of Washington and was it Washington? No, Colorado and I think Oregon. I'm not too sure. And there was a few other states that have legalized recreational use of marijuana. So as soon as they did that, that pretty much just destroyed the incentives for a lot of people that were going from like Nelson, because where I was living in BC, it was very close to the border. And beforehand, it used to be that people could take some of the best AAA BC bud that they would grow and exchange it for, make a lot of money at the very least, or exchange it for other drugs and stuff like that. So, for people that have money for organized crime, if they really want to get over a fence or under a fence, because, hey, those Mexican cartels, pretty good diggers, and you could pretty much tell the way that El Chapo got out, and it's pretty much evidence of that. But it's gotten to the point where, the things that I disagree with Trump on, especially with his, torturing, NSA spying, the whole Guantanamo thing. I mean, to be honest with you, there's only really like 100 people in Guantanamo, and they may be bad, but you have people in the States in maximum security prisons that like eat people and do all kinds of horrible, unthinkable things, and they're able to hold them in those prisons. So I don't see why not they can't just incorporate them in the maximum security. There's only 100 of them. The U.S. has a ridiculously high prison population, higher than most of the people that are incarcerated in the world, and most of the countries, they've got the highest rate of incarceration. So I don't really think that 100 people would really pose too much of a problem. In fact, it's just being more of a political football. And, there's a lot of human rights abuses, and I know people will say, well, they're terrorists, so they kind of, didn't exactly play the rules when they were putting IEDs along the side of roads and, taking out American soldiers and, or Allied soldiers for that matter, because there were Canadians that died too. And, different British soldiers, there was a lot of deaths from all around because of that intervention. And, it's a valid point. But you also have to keep in mind that, people are being, force-fed through, the straws and stuff in their noses and everything like that. And it's really just kind of for what it really is, Guantanamo right now is more of a just oh, look at the plight of these poor terrorists, these poor prisoners of war by Amnesty International and stuff. And I say the moment you take them out of Guantanamo and you throw them in just a regular prison like everyone else, that's having a deal. I'm not saying the whole prison system is a shining bastion in the U.S. of what the world should be like, but it would take that argument away from the people that are trying to make this huge trying to make us feel bad for all the people that are in those in Guantanamo. And whether or not there are people, I know that they've kind of wheedled it down to 100. And they've released some of the people that would just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. There was plenty of those people. But and any affiliations or leadership roles that they may have had, in 2003, definitely 10 years later aren't going to be holding the same position. But, the whole Guantanamo thing is kind of just really... It's not even really an issue now when you think about just how close the U.S. is to... the mainstream media keeps bringing on this whole thing about how people are investing in U.S. treasuries and how the U.S. dollar is so strong. And because of that strength, people are investing. But if you look at the countries like China, they're really... Russia, India, the whole... BRICS nations are trading within their own currencies, and they're actually selling a lot of U.S. Treasury bonds, which isn't good, because when that cash starts coming back to the U.S., then it goes to show you just how inflated it's going to be. So you have that risk of hyperinflation, and we'll have to see how that plays out, really. That's more of an issue in my books. But I can understand how Trump, because he's playing to a Republican, for the Republican nomination, he's got to act a little tough, he's got to talk tough, and in certain regards, I'm kind of more on Rand Paul or Ron Paul. Obviously, Ron Paul's not in politics anymore, but, I always agreed that an army should really be used for defense as opposed to, this whole interventionist war that the U.S. has led most of the Western nations on. And, the UN and the EU have, the whole NATO thing has just been just really not help things. They've helped perpetuate this hatred. They've helped lead to the rise of ISIS and the demand for a caliphate and bringing in the Muslim Brotherhood and everything. It's as much as they try to deny it, they haven't helped things out. They haven't. Like in Ukraine, for example, they should have put both sides to the corner and said, "Hey, listen, if anybody, decides to start anything here, we're not backing anyone. You shoot yourself in the foot, you get no money, and you deal with it yourself. And we'll monitor to make sure that innocent civilians don't get killed with the OSCE and CE, and leave it at that. Instead of secretly getting these George Soros types going in there and funding sides that they think are beneficial to their cause and are or against it's total warfare. And it used to be that when there was war, there was men against men, but now it's all covertly done. It's mostly information war that's going on. They try to tell you so much crap. You can't even get a straight answer of who we're funding in Syria. Are we funding Al-Qaeda? Are we funding Al-Nusra, which is a branch of Al-Qaeda? Are we funding the Free Syrian Army? Or are we just outright funding ISIS? The weapons keep falling into their hands, and it's kind of good that we got a ceasefire that's been agreed on with Russia and the U.S., but it just goes to show you it's an unshaky truce, and the U.S. is pretty much saying it's doubting that it's going to last. But and the ceasefire, actually, if someone this is what's kind of interesting about this supposed ceasefire, is that if someone fires upon your position, then you have then you're allowed to defend yourself and fire back. But really, the way that we're getting absolutely no real information from the mainstream media and how they've completely just misled the public, that's going to be open to interpretation on who fires first. No one's going to be reporting on the actual truth on that. And oh my God, Erdogan and Turkey are just making this huge thing. They're trying to go almost straight out against the Kurds, and Kurds are actually allied with Canada and the States. So it's just a gong show in that regard. So hopefully, NATO and the Western powers smarten up and or at least tell Erdogan, hey man, calm your heels right now, because or cool your heels right now, because you're going to be bringing us into a conflict that we're probably not going to like. He's talking about how how much of an enemy Russia and the Kurds are, and he's openly talked about trying to invoke Article 5, which is practically what gets what puts everyone into a war with a country that's being attacked. So guess we'll have to see how that plays out. And there's this war on cash again. It should be noticed. They're in the States. They're trying to bring ATM machines now, where you don't where it doesn't take your debit card, where you put your phone up to it. And I'm just like, oh my God, people! Here we are talking about how the NSA pretty much stores all your data, and we're using this technology where people can use their cell phones to access bank accounts and stuff like that. And okay, I can understand as someone who's living in a metropolitan society and is like, well, I barely use cash anyway, so it's kind of cool that I can use this stuff. They don't realize that hackers 12 feet away can hijack your signal and get all the information off your phone. It's to the point where we are practically just anybody who's a hacker or knows their way around a technological device can easily manipulate it. And they got the whole case what's going on with the FBI and Apple, Tim Cook saying he's not going to give in. But when they first broke the story, they were trying to say, oh, well, the FBI only needs the backdoor tool, and they'll totally erase it afterwards. And, we only need it this one time, just this one time, pretty please, we promise we won't use it again. And then you find out that there's over a dozen cases where the FBI is trying to get access to an Apple phone. So, it just goes to show you. And then, sure enough, Bill Gates is all on board. He's like, oh, well, you totally should. There are times where, where you have to, where it's, it's a possible terrorist. And they always use that whole situation. I mean, has the TSA caught any terrorists? No. Has the NSA caught any terrorists? No. All this information that they're collecting, all this data, and they're trying to find a needle in a haystack, pretty much, of somebody. And the times where they have actually gone after people, and this is actually in the news. Times where they have had FBI agents that have suspected from the NSA that Muslim extremists may be doing something. They get shut down by the Homeland Security. So, they're trying to do their job and they're not allowed to, and yet we have it so that all these terrorists acts like what was going on with the free speech. They knew that was going down there with the whole Draw Muhammad and stuff like that, but they haven't really been able to prevent an actual terrorist act. And the ones that they usually do are usually agent provocateurs that have infiltrated a group and made them go a little bit more extreme than what they normally probably would. They probably, and planning off that way is just goes to show you how it gets used against the returning veterans, the libertarians, because that's what they're saying in the States. They're going after those people. Here in Canada, they're going after people who are talking about free speech. They tried censoring the Rebel and their journalist, I think Sheila Gunn Reid or whatnot, and she seems like a really nice lady, and she was just there trying to report on what was going on with the when I guess they were renegotiating the oil royalties with the Alberta government and the NDP there, and they kicked her out, wouldn't let her in there, and then sure enough that backfired because it's done by Ezra Levant, so Rebel Media, so obviously he's going to have a lot of sway because he pretty much was one of the main figures from the whole Sun Media thing, and he has raised some really good points, but also there's many things that I don't agree with them on, especially when they try to say that women can't be strong. This Gavin McInnes guy who says that, well, hey, I agree with him on the fact that the new Ghostbusters is probably going to suck just because it's ridiculous. I mean, if you have if you add one female Ghostbuster or stuff like that, I don't think people would care as much. But the fact that it's just an all-female cast and they're all sitting there with these ridiculous poses and stuff. But I'm not saying that women can't be strong or anything. And a lot of times when Gavin does his videos, it really he's trying to say that women aren't strong. Women can't do the stuff that men can and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of bullcrap because women can be just as strong as men. We have all varieties of characteristics and traits. Whether or not you're male or female. So. You get strong people who are men, female. You get cowards that are men and are female. It doesn't really, that's if you try to generalize the whole thing, and that's kind of stupid. So I don't agree with them on that stuff. And but they really did make a good point when they were showing their Freedom of Information requests about how they were getting stonewalled with information about what was going on with building mosques on Canadian bases and stuff like that, which is a real story. And also for the whole the questionnaire that they were using to vet the refugees, and the government said there was no questionnaire, and they made this huge public thing where they were trying to bring in these refugees and ask them questions, but it was a total gong show, and the Rebel really exposed that. And also the fact that a lot of I guess they had somebody admit who was working with the whole liberals, what was going on there, saying that a lot of those refugees were actually coming from Turkey and were already living in apartment buildings and not in a war zone or not in these really bad camps and stuff. They were doing completely fine, and we just brought them over here as some sort of liberal sacrament. So that was kind of disturbing to see. And hey, you know what? I watched a whole bunch of different channels out there. I try to watch some mainstream. I actually find that it's very easy for me to watch a lot more alternative viewpoints, even if I don't agree with them, because a lot of the times they don't have those that huge filtering process where, you know, by the time it gets down to the public, it's just complete dumbed down, generic, no real investigation into one side or both sides of an argument. It's just, you know, there to get an emotional response because it's just total programming. And I mean, I do watch CNN, I do watch MSNBC, Fox News, CBC, CTV here in Canada, CBC, not CBC, but Global, stuff like that. I try to watch as much as I can, but you know, it really does make you appreciate alternative media a lot more than what I appreciate mainstream media, because they just, like, they will take take CNN for example. Like today, their whole thing's going to be the bombshell that Mitt Romney is talking about, when, you know, they don't even know what he's talking about. They don't know the specifics, so they're just, you know, accusing it to try to get people to go against him. And I think that's what I like about the fact is that, you know, they have all these analytics in the States. Oh, sorry, my back's all screwed up, so I'm trying to get comfy here. But, you know, they're trying to say, even the film theorists, you know, people who, you know, the guy, he had some interesting points and stuff about how Trump's trying to run like a reality TV contest, you know. But it has nothing to do with that. It has a lot to do with the fact that, you know, like the Democrats had their possibility, that whole, you know, them being sick of the Republican establishment with Obama, that whole hope and change was a genuine movement. People were sick and tired of the status quo. They were sick and tired of the states falling into just chaos, you know, just being to the point where people were losing their houses and stuff. Well, this is actually before people started losing their houses, you know, and sure enough, Obama did the exact same thing. In fact, if not, destroyed that country more than George Bush ever could possibly. And it broke a lot of Americans. And now you're getting the Republicans that are at the point where they're sick and tired of the Republican establishment, for one, because of just how either pro-amnesty, pro-Obama's policies, and allowed him to do a lot of executive decisions, the TPP, the new signing of the War Powers Act, where a president can pretty much send troops wherever, whenever, without Congress's or without the Senate's approval. So that's disturbing. You know, I mean, the NDAA that was signed before, you know, like when Obama was in office, is pretty much contrary to everything that he campaigned on. And that's also why I'm kind of a little cautious of Trump, because he's talking tough, he's talking big, he's a bit of an authoritarian. Let's not, you know, get around that fact. But whether or not it's pretty much the believability factor of whether or not people think Trump is going to follow through on what he's saying. And I think he will follow through on some of the stuff that he's talking about, and I guess we'll have to wait and see, really, in that regards, because people are sick and tired of the establishment, and that is the main factor. Now you're getting this huge Republican push, because they see how controlled the Democrats are, and they see how much the Democrats have been trying to push gun control. They've been trying to push that state controls your kids. They're trying to say that now that the state, that parents are going to be co-owners raising their children with the state. And that is very dangerous. Extremely dangerous, because the state teaches you, and it's bad enough that you're getting Common Core in the states, or you're getting counties where their funding is pretty much dependent on how well their students do. So there's all kinds of mismanagement and just corruption in that that system of doing things too. So it should be interesting to see what happens with this election. Tonight was Super Tuesday. I really think Trump's going to take it. Cruz, you know, he knows what to say. I'll give him that. Cruz is a really good public speaker, but there's a lawsuit against about whether or not he's, you know, if he should be, and you know, it's a legitimate. It's in the U.S. law. So I mean, he might not be able to run, or the fact that the Supreme Court, that whoever gets nominated is going to probably be the next Supreme Chief Justice is going to be, probably ruling on whether or not Cruz is actually a candidate, and he's Canadian. He definitely renounced his whole Canadian citizenship, which I understand because he wanted to run in the Republican establishment. He said some interesting things in Florida and stuff for the last election and whatnot, which I kind of agreed on. And let's not kid ourselves. There is an immigration problem in the States. They're not properly protecting their borders, and I mean Trump. He should have probably said, some Mexicans that come over, but he meant to say. I think that's what he really meant to say, but he ended up coming out as saying that most, so, that's kind of definitely perceived as racist, that they're a rapist, but there are people, there are many families that have been destroyed. I mean, let's get to the realization of what Trump said about that whole Mexican with the immigrant crisis. There are many different websites out there that document all the families of people that have been destroyed because a Mexican cartel member or just an immigrant came over from Mexico and either raped or killed or all kinds of horrible shit, and a lot of the times they'll get picked up by the authorities and they'll get released again. They'll get deported. They come back again and they do the exact same thing. And they have one guy who's who's raped a woman 4 different times that he's raped a woman coming across Mexico, and then he keeps getting deported back over to Mexico, and it's ridiculous. And conservatives make a good point that if they wanted to go over to Mexico and say, "Hey, I'm about to have a kid, pay for everything," they'll laugh at you or put you in a labor camp for a year. But the U.S. is expected to just give this huge thing where they're supposed to just welcome them with open arms and then give them freaking voting rights when they don't even have it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, the fact that they have they shouldn't even have an immigration department or anything like that, or Department of Homeland Security. They should just disband it if that's the way that they're going to be letting people into their country, and see how long it takes before they can't pay for everything. It's bad enough people are already on food stamps. There's already places that are considered ghettos in the States that are poor neighborhoods. Entire cities where they've had to just demolish old houses because of the foreclosures and stuff. It's so crazy. It really is. And you get the bankers making off like bandits as usual, and people paying having to pay the bill. And I'm so sick and tired of all these tax exempt non-governmental organizations trying to tell people in the States or in Canada how to live, or that we need to use less while they fly around in these giant private jets, and just pretty much promote a whole bunch of offset bullcrap. So that's definitely have to see what happens with that. And I think that's pretty much what I've covered so far. Super Tuesday's night in the States. Canada, we had the Kathleen Wynne, our premier, who's ripped off Canadians about $37 billion by overcharging us with hydro costs. It's just a total gong show. And that's what it is. It's meant to make us pay for more taxes, more costs for energy, and lining the pockets of the rich. That's what it comes down to. And there's a certain point where we have to stop this gap of wealth inequality, but in a way where we still give incentives to people for people to build a business and pursue that way. But as much as people talk about the free market and capitalist approach to things, we have not been in a free market. I mean, look at it. We're bailing banks out. We're not letting institutions fail when they should, and we're giving monopolies over to certain areas and stuff. And if you look at the intellectual property aspect of things, just the all the different succubuses that they have that charge people for copyright infringement, or even to the fact of, you look at like YouTube, where they're taking people's videos down for using like public for the fair use claim. It's ridiculous. It really is. We are at some a very exciting precipice, to say the least. Hopefully, we do something before we fall into a 1984 kind of scenario. So I'm going to leave it at that right now, but that's pretty much the update of what's going on right now. There's a few other interesting stories. I guess it was Penn State or whatnot. They, on a good note, they ended up raising, I think, a few $9 million or something like that for children's pediatric cancer. So I think that's great. They ended up doing like a 42-hour dance thing. Like they were doing it for quite some time, and so that's good that they were raising money and stuff like that. So that's a good news story. But also they have right near me. I found out about this from the Corbett report. Talking about, it's a website, ripenearme.com, I think, or .org. I'm not 100% sure. But if you look it up on Start Page or whatever engine you use to search, you can find possibly free fruits. Like they have berries, fruits. Let's say if someone's got like a pear tree that is ripe, and they have like plenty of food for themselves, but they're just like, oh, maybe somebody should take some of this stuff. Well, there's this website where you can pretty much just put list that location, so that people can like say, oh, either on their phone or using the web, can go there and get food for free, or sometimes they'll have it really, really dirt cheap, where you can buy the stuff for like a gallon, or depending where you are, kilogram, because here in Canada we have a different system than I think what they use in the States. But so that's free food right there for anybody who's interesting, or for anybody who's looking to grow different like vegetables and fruits, and that's a good way of activism too, because there's certain places in Canada and in the States where they're trying to crack down on farming. So it's a way where you can be a rebel and gain some skills, because if stuff hits the fan, then we're going to be going back to that kind of Mennonite society where where we grow, well, at least that's if there isn't like a huge radiation wasteland and it turns into like a Fallout scenario, where you can't grow anything, or the stuff that you grow ends up not being edible, or the stuff that you try to grow ends up eating you. But jokes aside, that Right Near Me website's pretty cool. You can maybe even find some free food around your area. So I think that's a great website, and I definitely give thanks to James Corbett for Corbett. But anyways, for mentioning that. And another website that is actually my grandparents. They've been doing this for quite some time. It's called Buttons by Design. And what it is they have like the medium-sized buttons. They also have fridge magnets for about the same size, and also they do have bigger buttons, but those are kind of a little bit more expensive. But what you can do really is, if you send them I'll put the link in the description for anybody. You can pretty much send a button design, anything you want. You can speak out against the central banking cartels. You can speak out against whether or not the TPP, if you want, anything or you can like make one specifically for your kids or something like that. Let's say if you're trying to, what you do is you design your own kind of button picture that would fit on a button. If not, we do. They do. My grandparents. They do. Like if you put like the specifications of what you want, they will make it for you, but they'll charge $20. So it's usually cheaper just to have your own design for a button. That way, it's only like a few bucks, plus like shipping and handling. But they have prices and stuff like that where you can design your own artwork and stuff, and either promote your business too. I mean, it's a cheap way of advertisement. When you look at people that are paying anywhere from $200 a month upwards for some advertisements for a well-placed sign. Well, if you have buttons and stuff, you can pretty much like my grandparents, they make them really cheap, almost at cost value, because well, they do a bunch of other stuff like process serving and stuff, which was not something I really like them doing. So I'm kind of like trying to be like, hey, why don't you guys do the, promote your button business and try to get them more work, so that way they're not having to deal with angry people that don't like to be served. Because I mean, they're getting old, and I feel bad for them that they have to, because here in Canada, the pension is just a joke, really. I mean, my grandma used to be a judge back in the day, housing tribunal judge, and but this is kind of getting more into my family and my life and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll put the links in there. So for anybody who wants to, either for activists or even promoting your own business, you can get the buttons for like 75 cents or I think $1, depending on the order, per button, and then sell them for like $1.50 or $2 at your business or anything like that too. So I'll put the links in there. That's just a way to kind of help my grandparents out, because they've been just amazing helping me out with a lot of stuff. So rides and everything, considering my back's all messed up and it's wintertime and it's really icy out there. Anyways, I'm going to stop rambling, and thank you very much for listening to the broadcast, and I'm going to be doing some more videos shortly. I'll be releasing the U.S. Economic Collapse series, because I'm getting that almost done, and should be either this weekend or Monday, Tuesday-ish, for sure. So anyways, thank you very much for listening, and keep on rocking in the free world. Take care, party peoples. Peace.